may as well move on to the next story, or the next thing that I wanted to talk about, is the changes to the immigration changes. To be honest, it's kind of weird to, it's kind of difficult, not weird, it's kind of difficult to describe the changes that have happened, because some of these kind of restrictions were kind of in place, but they weren't sort of clearly defined, and they've changed over the past few years, and there was a little bit of sort of confusion. And I think visa exemption has always been a little bit of a tricky, or a little bit of a grey area. If we have to describe what visa exemption is, if you come to Thailand and you're coming for a holiday, you don't really need a visa if you're from a lot of European, Western, South American, Asian countries. There's a visa exemption scheme, which is what it says on the tin. It means you're exempt from needing a visa to enter Thailand for a certain amount of days. So when I first came to Thailand, visa exemption was for 30 days, and you could extend it a further 30 days as long as that was accepted by a local immigration officer. Recently, it got extended so that you were just given 60 days. So if you turned up and you were from a country that had visa exemption, you would get a stamp for 60 days now, I think. So yeah, and apparently you could also extend that a further 30 days, giving you potential 3 months stay in Thailand, visa exempt, if you were from one of the qualifying countries. And you could also prove that you were visiting for the purposes of tourism. So more recently, when you board a flight to Thailand, you're most airlines these days, I think, and it happened to me when I last flew in, they do want to see a return flight booked before you even get on the plane. And as well, when you get to the immigration in Thailand, they will probably or may ask you for that proof too. Now, if you have a longer term visa, then you shouldn't need to, but you may need to show that you have a visa for different purposes, because obviously this is like a requirement specifically for visa exemption schemes. If you're applying for them, you'll need to show proof of onward travel. Because again, this was always a scheme just for tourists. It wasn't for anything else, it was just for tourism. It's to make things smoother for tourists. Obviously tourism is a massive sector in the Thai economy, so they want to make things as smooth as possible for tourists, and why wouldn't they? It's a good idea. So visa exemption has always been a useful thing. That being said, it does get abused, and it's also like there are people who obviously turn up to visa exemption, find work illegally, and sort of stay in the country through visa exemption and work, right? So that's clearly not allowed. What's less clearly defined is people who perhaps are like, maybe they're older, maybe they don't need to work anymore, maybe they want to stay in Thailand for 3 or 4 months, and maybe they can then use visa exemption. Maybe they come 2 or 3 times. So is that allowed, right? And some people may want to like travel for a long time in Southeast Asia. Maybe they want to go out of Thailand and then come back, stay for a prolonged period, and do what some people call visa runs, which is where you go to the border and then come back. Now, there are legitimate reasons to have to do a visa run or to go to a border, stay in the country. Maybe you need to apply for a different visa. So, for example, I've had to do it before. When I was working as a teacher in a school in Thailand, I wanted to change to move to a different school. I wasn't able to get everything, or the 2 schools weren't in communication well enough to be able to just transfer my work permit. So basically my visa got cancelled, I had to leave, and I had to go and find other visa arrangements. Now, with visa exemption, I thought I could just come back in, move, communicate with the school, then I'd have to leave again and apply for the working visa once again. However, when I did try to do that, I got pulled aside at the airport and questioned for some time. So I had assumed it was like kind of just a free visa. And I think a lot of people do. When I first came to Thailand, that is, obviously I learned better than that. But yeah, it is a little bit unclear. Obviously, like if you're not working, then you are technically in the kingdom as a tourist. But yeah, you're not, basically what they're clamping down on now is people who would do that for 3 or 4 times per year and just try and make Thailand their base. But that kind of has always not been allowed. to be honest. I don't know what changed. I think the extension of the visa exemption from 30 days to 60 days will like people sort of found it as a viable option to sort of stay in country. But if you're here for any other reason than just a holiday, then you do need to have a different type of visa, right? If you work online and you want to stay in Thailand, then perhaps, well, definitely you should be on the DTV, the Destination Thailand visa, which is set up for remote workers. You shouldn't be using the visa exemption scheme and then living as a remote worker. You should be on the appropriate visa. If you want to retire in Thailand, there's a retirement visa, or the non-immigrant O, that you can get extended for the purposes of retirement. So you should be on that one. But a lot of people who perhaps were kind of retired and just wanted to spend large amounts of the year in Thailand could just use visa exemption, which is kind of easier. And again, because it was kind of a grey area. So I think really the changes are just more clarity, which I'm actually not against. I think it's a good idea to have like sort of the rules, as long as the rules are sort of presented and given out. Because again, a lot of borders have their own rules. So certain borders are more tricky. Certain borders are less used to sort of frequent traffic. However, some borders, there are legitimate reasons why they would have people crossing in the same day, perhaps, you know. So yeah, I think the thought process and the changes are supposed to be clarity on that topic. And again, I don't think everything's officially been released yet on this. I actually found it difficult to find sort of like the specific details online. If we have a look at the Bangkok Post, all I could find was this article about the immigration police target visitors making multiple visa runs. And in this article it says, immigration police are focusing on blocking foreigners, especially scammers who do visa runs to extend their stay in Thailand by abusing the government's visa-free entry scheme. These foreigners do not visit Thailand for tourism. Many of them work or operate business with Thai nominees as their front, and they use the visa-free scheme to avoid official visa requests before traveling. So yeah, again, they don't go into too much detail. And this is an interesting point as well. Like, this is a key factor, right? Genuine tourists in Thailand typically don't spend more than 15 days in Thailand. If you're coming just for a holiday, most people are in holiday for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe max. So having that visa exemption go all the way to 60 days may be a bit excessive if it's just for tourists, because the majority of tourists just come for 30 days. However, you do have like backpackers who maybe like want to stay in Thailand for 3 months, which again isn't necessarily bad, and I think that's what they were trying to encourage. However, I'm not sure that many people do. A lot of people will sort of bounce around rather than just stay in one country for 3 months if they're a backpacker, I think. Obviously this is me kind of guessing, but I think that's kind of the issue, and that's kind of what they're trying to resolve with that. So yeah, if we go to the Tiger, again, I wasn't able to find too much, but it just says Thailand tightens visa rules to curb abuse by repeat visitors. Again, they're saying that it's hopefully it's basically, I think the main thing they're trying to stop is sort of visa runs, which again, it depends what you mean by visa run, right? If by visa run you mean you're leaving Thailand, going to a country or your home country that has a Thai embassy, and you're going to apply for a different type of visa or a more appropriate visa or the correct visa for your next visit, then you apply, get accepted, get that visa, and then return. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, there are people like they said who travel down and then try and come straight back through and just get another visa exemption. So I think that's what they're really trying to kick out, because again, I think there was a little bit of confusion around that. In fact, I actually saw a famous YouTuber, I won't say their name because they deleted the video afterwards, but they were traveling to Thailand and they'd been a few times, and this was before these recent changes, and one of them got pulled aside because they'd been in and out, and they said on the video, you get free visa exemption. They didn't really understand the rules. So I'm not at all against kind of more clarity around the visa exemption scheme, because again, it's sort of sold or sort of could be read as just sort of a free visa for X amount of time. But I think it's good to have a cap, because it used to be, I'm sure it used to be that you could only do 2 per calendar year. And I think that's what they're going back to. Like I said, I couldn't actually find an official post on that where it said the actual kind of how many times you'll be able to do this per year and so on. I did see a good post by Richard Barrow on his Facebook page. Hopefully he doesn't mind me showing that on my YouTube channel. But yeah, Richard's a pretty cool journalist in Thailand and posts a lot of often correct information. So he's done this breakdown, which he said is kind of the sort of 4 main changes. So number 1, elevate and intensify the screening of individuals frequently using the visa exempt scheme, free visa, which is what it often gets called, for entry and exit in and out in the manner of a visa run without returning to their country of domicile. If any individual uses the visa run privilege more than 2 times without justifiable reason, Immigration Bureau will consider denying entry to prevent the use of this opportunity. So again, I think what they mean is 2 times, like kind of per calendar year. Again, I'm sure that's what it used to be. I think the sort of rules were relaxed a little bit to kind of encourage tourism post-COVID, I think. But again, I think they're kind of like trying to tighten that back up, or at least clarify what is supposed to be or best understood. So I think you're only really allowed to do that twice per year, which is what I thought you were always allowed to do. However, it's good that there is some clarity if that's what the rule now is. But yeah, so it's basically if you want to stay in Thailand visa exempt, you can do it sort of twice per calendar year, and after that it will be kind of treated as suspicious and as you're not really here for the purposes of tourism necessarily. And again, there's a lot of good visas for lots of different situations, so there's probably a more appropriate visa if you do need to use visa exemption twice per year anyway. Like I said, there's the DTV, the Destination Thailand visa, which is good for remote workers and people who are actually, you can apply for it for a whole bunch of reasons. You could do it, Thai language learning is now, you could do the education visa or the DTV visa, depending on how you want to do that. You can do Thai soft powers, which I think is kind of like studying Muay Thai, maybe even Thai cooking and other sort of cultural studies in Thailand. And you can do it for medical reasons as well. And obviously remote workers can also apply through the DTV. There's a retirement visa, obviously, if you're retired. If you have Thai family, you've got the non-immigrant O visa. So again, if you do want to spend like large portions per year in Thailand, then there's probably much better visa options anyway. It's just they're a little bit more challenging, I suppose, the application process for them. But yeah, that's number 1, and emphasize the interception of foreign nationals who have a history recorded in the watch list system. Again, I think this is another sort of reason. There has been some news surrounding kind of some of the like scam factories in neighboring countries to Thailand. Obviously, the people operating and perhaps involved in organized crime in those countries maybe are abusing the system too. So that's probably one of the other factors why they've had this like kind of public announcement. And yeah, they're also going to crack down on overstays on the visa too. But yeah, like I said, I kind of expect there to be more, and maybe like an official decree soon, hopefully, that clarifies all those points. I did want to make like a standalone video talking about this. Obviously on my channel I do talk about visas quite a bit, especially for Thailand. But again, I couldn't quite get all the information just yet. So I think it's a good idea talking about it on live, maybe making a sort of standalone video once there's more clarity around that.